I am so excited to have you join us today for this conversation I'm having with my friend Lauren. She and I have connected this year, and I think she's pretty brilliant. And you need to hear her story and also more about what she does. And I'm just going to let you introduce yourself, Lauren. Tell us what you do, how many kids you got, where you live, where you're from, and give us a quick overview. And then we'll dive into all the goodness that you have to share today.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so excited to be on your podcast, Lonnie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. And so my name is Lauren. I am from Canada. And I have two little very adventurous boys. And I have two sides to my business, but the main side is that I support teachers with their French teachers, especially, but teachers in general with their teaching. And I help them stop working evenings and weekends. But I've also started helping entrepreneurs doing a similar thing, working less, setting up their systems and that sort of thing on the side, which is a really fun extra thing that I'm doing in my business right now too.
Yes, I love this so much because you are a teacher for how many years?
I was in teaching. I was a youth worker. I've done a few different roles in education, and I think I started when I was about 22. So I guess 12 years in education.
So just a little bit of
13.
experience, right?
13. Oh my gosh,
13
13. I'm
months.
35.
Oh, that time goes fast. And
Yeah.
when you didn't start out as an entrepreneur, how did you come into this business of teaching teachers how to make teaching and the processes that they're doing so much more efficient and to get time back for their families? How did this come about? Because I think it's really important for us to kind of see the backstory of how we ended up in this position.
hmm
And that can really encourage us to think outside of the box. So, how did you go from being a teacher to this business?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'll give you the short version.
Yeah, give me the
Um,
overview.
yeah, the overview. But the first kind of impetus for me was I was teaching full time and I was pregnant with my first baby. So I think if you're listening, you can probably relate to the feeling of like your big life change when you have your first baby. And I wanted to come back to the classroom. I loved teaching and I was planning on coming back full time. I had my dream job. Like I loved it. I had this beautiful classroom. I loved my staff. I loved my students. I was planning on just coming back full time. And then I had my son and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine being away from him 5 days a week when he's really little. I want to be able to go back and teach part-time." Um, but even though I found a replacement for myself and I was gonna go 3 days a week and have somebody else come in 2 days, she was qualified, she worked for my board, she was a French immersion teacher too, she was really excited. They wouldn't give us the okay. They wouldn't allow it.
Um,
And so I ended up quitting. And I moved on and I started teaching in a different board part-time. But I thought there must be another way for me to create income while still being at home with my son, which I'm sure that's why a lot of moms start their businesses. And so
mhm.
that's where I started, and I started creating teaching resources, so like lesson plans, different activities and things like that for teachers. And then it evolved into creating those same kind of systems and plans that I used to use in the classroom and then in my business for teachers in the classroom, which is when I started mentoring.
That's amazing. And you and I have had a lot of conversations about the fact that when you go to advertise and market your business, you're really talking to the teachers and offering them something that not many people are telling them they need.
hmm
So it's not the thing that's taught in school to become a teacher. It's not the normal processes for a teacher. It's not the normal like workload or even thought process around how they're handling their classroom. So how have you adjusted your marketing to even talk to a group of people who are like, this isn't on the top of my list to buy?
hmm Yeah, that has been one of the, I guess, challenges because I have worked through and I've had people come through my program. I've been doing it for 2 years now, but I did wonder that at first because I thought, if you feel like you've got an issue with nutrition, you go to a nutritionist. If you feel like you have like, I don't know, a problem in your marriage, you're going to go to a counselor. Like it's like something that people are already looking for, but it's not like most teachers aren't going, "Oh, I'm really struggling with my teaching. I'm just going to look for an online mentor." Like that's not a thing. So, I mean, it's great in that like I'm not in a very saturated market. There are teacher coaches and mentors online, but it's not like there are tons of them, right? So the big thing that I've needed to share with teachers is that the way that they're teaching, it doesn't have to be like that. I think a lot of people think, oh, this is just how it is. It's normal to grade all day on Sunday. It's normal. Like some teachers I've worked with go to bed at like 1 a.m. Like they work all day long and then they have their kids at home and then their kids go to bed and then they work and then they get up early the next day. And they just think that that's normal, like that's just how it is and there isn't really another reality. And so my big thing is showing them that you can still teach well and work less and having like helping them see that this is a different possibility. And also I think a lot of teachers that work with me often have like a big change in their lives. And so they're like, I need to find something different. And so when they see me, they look at, oh, okay, this could be a solution. But like they've had health issues, they've
Mm.
gone through cancer, they've had a baby, somebody is, someone's passing their life, like a huge change. And so that's what makes them think like, oh, I need to live differently.
This is so powerful. And I think a lot of people listening, even if we're in different industries, we can take this and really apply it. That you're in what you're offering could be something new. It could be something way out of the box and no one's really looking for it, but
Hmm.
presenting it in a way of like, here's how your situation could be so much better.
Yeah.
And like you're just disrupting this normal narrative of overworking, exhaustion, nonstop, all of that feelings that your people have. And you understand because you were there and you experienced it in real
Yeah.
time. So that relatability is so powerful.
So powerful. And I think, yeah, the two things that I've learned as I've kind of moved through it is one, like showing them possibility, like this is what's possible for you, and continuing to bring that up so they can see. So if you're listening and you're wondering how you can do this for your audience, it's about showing them that possibility, like what is out there and casting that vision for them. But
Mm.
the other thing is also really getting clear on, are they solution aware or problem aware? And then
Ooh.
getting clear on, okay, if they're just in the problem and they're not looking for the solution, like my people aren't looking for a solution, they just know that they might not even realize that they have a problem. They're just in the day to day, right? And then they start to realize like, oh, okay, maybe this is an issue. And it's like this journey of realizing it. So also knowing where your audience is and where your buyers are in that journey to being able to see like, yeah, I have a challenge that I want to get support with or I want to have solved, and what would it look like to have for it to be solved? So are they in like the solution aware or problem aware phase?
This is really great. I wrote those two things down because I want to recap them is really showing them what is possible in
Mhm.
for their life, whether it's in business, whether it's something that doesn't really affect their income, but can affect their time, their efficiency, and their overall well-being, like what is possible. And then
Mhm.
you pointing out the solution aware or the problem aware, those two things, that is marketing capitalization right there in understanding your audience. Because like you just said, your audience is really not aware that they're needing a solution.
Mhm.
So you have to start with the problem. Have to start with
Yeah,
that problem and paint a new vision, a new kind of life that they want and
absolutely.
could want and could have. That's really awesome. Definitely going to make a note of that one.
Awesome. And yeah, I think too and I don't know if you're listening if you have this in your industry, but I think there's a bit of there's a sense of shame too that if you're not
Mm,
teaching, you shouldn't tell anyone that it's not going well. And I remember when I first started, I had this idea that like mentoring would be a waste of time, like that I didn't need it. And then eventually I did get some really great mentors that I was really happy to learn from, but um a lot of the kind of support out there in my district was really surface level and not very helpful. So also thinking like, what are the things that they're thinking that could get, what are the beliefs that they have that could get in the way of them thinking that you could be a solution. Like if they think mentoring is a waste of time, like they're not going to follow you. You know what I mean? If you're a
Mhm.
mentor. Yeah.
It's such a shift, and you nailed it on the head. It's shame, or not really saying what we're feeling. Oh, well, I
Mhm.
shouldn't be complaining because I'm so lucky to have this job, or this is just the way it is, or this is the sacrifice we make because we are this. And I see this also with entrepreneurs too. And I'm wondering if you feel the same since you do work with entrepreneurs. Is we get into like this hustle mode, overwhelmed, never ending to do list. I have to do everything. I have to show up everywhere. And I'm just going to work nonstop, stay up really, really late. And we just believe this story and narrative. Like, if we want this income, we have to work really, really hard to be able to get it,
Mhm.
and a lot. Do you
Yeah,
see that as well with the entrepreneurs?
like I need to work hard to make money.
Hmm.
Or the other thing that I have seen in my clients is that they have so many there's so many fires for them to put out, like, there's so much urgency, so many things that they could be doing that they stay in this sense of fight or flight mode, and so it's
Oof.
hard to pull back and look at, like, what are the important tasks I wanna do to grow my business? What are the things that I really want to be able to support my clients with more? Like, I started with my some of my clients where we start out just dealing with, like, "Okay, how are you gonna make it through the day and not feel like you're just dropping balls everywhere and feeling like that sense of stress to, okay, I want to improve my program design. How am I going to change this? How am I going to, add these different pieces so that my program runs really well? But you can't get to those long-term, bigger picture thinking when you're always in that sense of survival mode or stress because you're just doing everything.
Yes, you nailed it on the head with the fight or flight mode. I see too
Mhm.
many of us in that. And I've been guilty of stepping into that fight or flight mode
Oh,
where
yeah.
everything is
Like
on
it's so
fire
easy with
and
your
I'm here
kids
all
and like, totally.
it
Totally.
is. It is. And then that has to be the first place of regulation. It really does. We can't even address all the other things until we get regulated.
Mhm.
And no matter what industry you're in or who you're serving, I feel like this is the top of the pyramid before we dig deep. We have to start here.
Yes, I totally agree, and I think that was one thing that was really missing for me when I started is
Mm,
I mean, I'm still continuing. I mean, Lonnie and I were just talking about that earlier this week about how I'm gonna handle my migraines. But even, like, when I think about my first launch, I was so over the top afraid that I literally threw up from fear. Like, I was so
mm.
afraid, and I thought I just had to push through the fear, and then eventually I wouldn't be afraid anymore. But every time you wanna uplevel or you wanna grow your business, you're going to feel fear because it's outside of your comfort zone. So it's not
Yes.
about just getting past the initial fear and not feeling it anymore, which is what I thought it was. It's actually about that being able to regulate your nervous system, like you said, and learning like I talk to new entrepreneurs sometimes and they say like, "Oh, I'm so afraid to launch." And I said, "Do you have any strategies to manage your fear or to feel like to handle your fear?" And that's not something that a lot of people think about. So that yeah, when you said the self-regulation, it's huge.
Yeah, that's not in any courses. Very many courses, like how to handle fear when you're launching.
Yeah, totally.
It should
Totally.
be. It should be a part of it. And you and I have this in common. Really, it was we bring that into our coaching and the support that we offer is we
Mhm.
have to know and acknowledge our feelings, because if we don't, that will keep us from having the success that we truly do want. And like that can be frustrating. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that you're so dysregulated. You can't even experience what's going on with you or be able to really empower yourself to do the task in an efficient way.
And that's the wonderful thing that I love about coaching too, that I've had with my own coaches and that I offer with my clients is that we can, like your coach can start to reflect back to you, like, I'm seeing that this is a pattern of yours or a feeling or a belief
Mhm.
that's getting in the way. And that's why you're not getting the success that you're looking for because something's holding you back. And it's really hard to see that when you're on your own.
Oh, it is. It's there's like a wall in front of us. And
Mhm.
I just recently had some things reflected back to me that I didn't want to see, just
Yes.
being honest. But when it was reflected back, oh, look at me, I'm responding in a frustrated way. to these things happening in my business. And that's causing more frustration and more frustration, more frustration. So now I have a business full of frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And and then it's really hard to bring success into frustration. And so I
Yeah.
had to calm the frustration down and ask myself, why am I frustrated? And then release that and find a new way to find satisfaction, to find enjoyment, to find peace or energy. Then I found, oh wow, I'm different. I'm showing up differently and it's flowing freely now instead of it being like hitting a brick wall, which I couldn't figure out why I was hitting the brick wall first by myself.
And it can be like, I think we can feel that sense of like joy and creativity. And then all of a sudden like, it'll be like a slow decline. And all of a sudden we land in that feeling of frustration in our business that it's
Hmm.
not working. Right. And I think sometimes it's like, okay, how can I take a step back? Because when we're always in the frustration, we're just going to bring in more of those feelings. But if you can, like you just did, like I've been feeling that recently too. It's like, okay, I need to be able to let that go because when you're in the feeling of frustration and then what if this doesn't work or if this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working, you're not going to be able to attract in new ideas that are going to help you get out of that problem.
You can't, and you can't attract people. I mean,
Yeah.
people don't want to work with me when I'm in a frustrated mood. My kids certainly hide from me when I'm frustrated. I'm like, mom's not happy. Let's go
Yeah.
hide. So that's a great check-in for yourself right now is just to say, like, where am I coming at? Am I in a frustration mode? And one of the things, and you and I have a lot of conversations about this via Voxer, frustration often comes from overwhelm and things not flowing well, or like the tasks are piling up.
Mm,
So this is the same thing for your teachers and your business owners. We have to bring in systems. Sometimes the
yes.
systems and the actions we're doing are not flowing properly or working with our zone of genius or how we think or even our time. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, wow, she's going to start talking about systems. And Lauren and I both feel systems are sexy and we need to bring it
we love
back.
we love us in systems. But I remember like even when I was in the classroom and in my business too, but I remember in the classroom I was working so hard. And I remember one
Mhm.
day in the classroom, there's like motion sensor lights. So I would be there and it would be dark. So I'd have to like stand up and wave my arms around to get the lights to turn back on for me because I was there so late. Um, and one day I had this knock on my door and I taught high school at the time. And I had this little voice being like, who are you? And I looked at the clock and it was like 5:50 on a Friday and I was still at
Wow.
school.
Wow.
And yeah, and there was this little kid who came up and I realized, oh my gosh, the Chinese school is starting. I need to get out of my room. Like no one else is still here. And I knew that I had to do something differently. And the thing that made the biggest difference for me to start leaving work at school by 4 and helping in like now with my entrepreneur clients and my clients is creating systems, but it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be systems. I think that the mistake that I see people make is they think it needs to be one way and they won't be able to maintain it. It's about
Yeah.
knowing your level of like flow to structure and creating a system that's going to work for you rather than you feeling like I can't maintain it.
Oh, yeah. And that's also what I hear. And I'm gonna be honest, I was that voice of negativity in response to systems for a long time because
Mhm.
I was like, you tell me I need a planner, and I'm like, I've tried every planner. They don't work. And I
Mhm.
can give you all the reasons, all the planners, and all the scheduling tools do not work for me. And it would get me all riled up. But at the same time, I was like, my time's out of control and I'm not getting things done. So, how do you get people from this belief of, I've tried everything and it doesn't work for me, to, oh, I love this system. Tell us about your magic.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is like, that's the key, right? Because then I still have teachers who take a little while, like, I'm just bad at routines. And I'm like, that is a
Yes.
belief that you are bad at routines.
Yes.
You can change that. Anyway, the biggest thing that I look at is, yeah, like I give a spectrum and I say, okay, where are you in the spectrum of structure to flow? So I'll draw it like you can't see me in the podcast episode, but I would draw a line and I invite you to think about this too when you're thinking about it. are you very structured where you like your business to be every day you have like standard operating procedures and everything is very clear and you have a routine for every day and this is how it rolls and it's very, very structured? Or do you like a lot of freedom and flexibility and openness in the
Mm,
way that you run? So once you've identified that, that's huge because then you can start to create the system that's going to work for you. So that's the first step. And the second step I would tell you as you're listening is to think about the system as a tool or like a ramp to get you to a destination. It's not about creating this perfect system. So you want to think about like what is the intention behind the system? Like what's this tool supposed to do? What matters about this tool? And when you can think about what it's actually designed to do, that will help you let go of a lot of extra pieces that are going to be hard to maintain that you don't need. Does that make sense?
can you give us an example for that? I love this. I want an example. So like give us an entrepreneur example.
Yeah. So for example, like say like a lot of people want a system or they want help with their content creation.
Okay.
And people will ask me, should I batch my content? Should I do it every day? Should I do it like how should I create my content? And for me to just say this is the perfect content creation system isn't going to work because everyone's going to have a different style. So say you've identified that you were more on the flow side and because the more structured you are, the more people tend to embrace systems. But I find
Hmm.
when you're more on the flow, that's when you're kind of iffy about it. So say you're more on the flow side and you want to create a content system, then you would identify like what really matters to you about the content. Is it that you're posting every day? And it doesn't have to be really deep, just a little bit every day. Is it that it needs to be something that you can work within your team? So you need to have a system that really eases the communication in your team. Is it that you're
Mm,
taking too long to plan out your content and it's taking you forever? And so you're not posting consistently, maybe you need something that's more like that's easier or that's faster. So what does that look like? So like with one of my clients, we looked at her system and what really mattered is that she could easily pass it over to her VA and she wanted it to take less time. What didn't matter is that she was producing, for example, original content every week because she had this beautiful bank of things and with beautiful graphics and all the stuff that she had already created. So based on what mattered, which was the communication with her VA and the speed, so she could actually do it and move on to other pieces in her business, we created a system where she's posting like 3 days a week. She can post reels if she wants to, but she's posting 3 days a week but she's reusing an old post from a previous like from before. Her VA is maybe just creating new graphics for it. She's just creating the content, so her VA is creating the graphics. She's just creating the actual content itself. And so she can plan now, like I think she said she planned like a whole month's worth in 40 minutes. It was crazy.
wow.
I don't think I could do that. But but I think that's an example of like she created that system. But if you're newer in business and you don't have a big bank, that's maybe not going to work for you. Or maybe you don't have a VA and you want to be able to hone in your message that's going to affect how the system you create is going to work for you. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I love that you brought up the fact that there's no one way to create content.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've used a system before and it hasn't worked for you, it could be because it wasn't with the priorities and the things that were important to you. Like you just pointed out with this particular client, what was important to her, most important was the time and speed and the communication with her client. So if you built a system that takes a lot of your energy first and then you give it to your VA, you might feel like your VA is not doing her job because you just spent a
Mm-hmm.
ton of time in that system where you didn't want to be. So if
Yeah.
like building a customized system based off of you and your flow, oh my gosh, it's game changer.
Game
And
changer.
what kind of tools do you use to help build the system? So like that's the next step. So obviously we don't want everything on pen and paper
Mm-hmm.
because that's hard to carry around everywhere. And it can't be just in your head because then if you do want to grow a team, nobody can read your thoughts. So
No, I've had that experience. Oh,
you're
shoot.
right.
I don't have that written down. Right. I have to tell you.
Isn't it surprising when people can't read your mind?
Yeah. Right. Oh, that's in my head. Oh, that one's also in my head. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Let me get that out for you.
Totally. And just yeah, going back to even just thinking about like the level of detail too. Like sometimes people add
Mhm.
too many details and it's not going to work for them, and why that's why it feels heavy.
Yeah.
So in terms of tools, I don't think there's any one right tool. Like I know Lonnie uses Trello, right?
Yes.
And that works really, really well for you. I realized when I started using Trello that I am so fussy about how things look that I just got sucked into, I don't like this background. I want to change this background and this color. And then it was crazy. And I was like, okay, there are too many choices here. This is not the system for me. Um, which is silly, but that is truly
It's
that's
too
how I am.
distracting. Get you. I gotcha.
Yeah, it's too distracting. So my favorites currently are monday.com for for my leads and my clients. That's where all my notes are for my clients and my leads. And then my VA and I have some standard operating procedures that we've just created right now in Google, like they're just Google Docs and in a Google Drive. And then we share back and forth through our in our weekly meeting, and then we have it in just Google Docs. So either Google Docs, Google Drive, and then monday.com is our current. But I've used other ones too that I've really liked as well, but that's a system that's working for us right now.
I love it. And you found which works for you. You tried some different things. And I actually have another client who was like, Trello is too overwhelming for me to see all
Mhm.
these colors. She wants to see things more like a document, but she has too many people in her team and too many tasks to track through Google Docs.
Yeah.
So she joined ClickUp and put her systems into ClickUp. And that's another one that's just it's similar to Trello, but it's a little more robust and it has more of a, I would say, software flow to it. Looks like you can turn it into spreadsheets, you can turn it into more tasks. It's not as customized, pretty as
Mhm.
Trello, but I think the thing that she learned and what we were talking about, because she was like, "Should I switch to Trello?" When she started working with me, I was like, "Absolutely not."
Yeah.
Don't leave the system that you're working right now if it's working for you. We just need to improve the workflow of the system. So
Yeah.
if
And
you can
thinking
think
too,
about
oh, go
that.
ahead.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, go.
Thinking too about what do you want your system to be able to do? Like what do you need it? Like what's as opposed, because sometimes we can get into this place of I know I've looked at different systems for different clients and I'll be like, ooh, that one looks fun. Look at all these features. And what about this
Mhm.
one? And should I choose Monday? And should I choose oh my goodness, what's the other one that I used to use? It's escaping me.
Asana?
Asana. Like which one, what's going to work for me? And so when I started to think, okay, how are we going to use it? What do I actually need it to do?
Mhm.
That's when you can narrow in and choose the right one. Like another one I liked for a while when I had a bigger team and we were creating a lot of projects was Toggle. They have a
Yes.
project management system. And so it's a similar vibe to Trello with the boards and everything like that. And it was color coded, but it wasn't for my fussy personality to too into all the different colors because I could just go down a rabbit hole trying to make it look perfect, and
Right.
that's not where I need to be spending my time. So yeah, about finding the one that's gonna achieve, be able to do what you want it to be able to do. So yeah, Trello did work for me for a while.
Yeah, and I think like you just said, you pointed out, really before you set up the system, asking yourself what is most important to you? What are you
Mhm.
needing from it? And do you have a team? Are you going to bring on a team? Maybe you're
Yeah.
now a solopreneur and you're eventually going to have a team. What else do you need it to do? Where are the gaps that you're having? So starting there and then creating the system really makes a big difference to getting it to work for you.
Yeah. And I like that being able to see, it doesn't have to be perfect, but thinking in that future place, because you could create this whole system that's working for you and then you hire someone on and then it doesn't work anymore, right? So I really like that point.
Yes. Yes. And oftentimes we just haven't thought about like what would it look like if somebody came in and needed to take over this task without me walking them and holding them by the hand. could they do it? And
Mhm.
really, that also helps you be more efficient when you think that way. So if you're one hopeful, like, I would really love to hire a virtual assistant to help me with content. If you could think about, well, what if I did hire somebody in the next 3 months? Could they take what I've been currently doing for my content plan and just take it and run? Or are they going to be super confused?
Yeah. And that's why, like, I started doing this myself before I hired on different VAs or different team members, and now I'm getting my VA to do it just in case. Fingers crossed she doesn't leave, I love her, but if one day she has to move on, I don't want all the knowledge that she has in her head to just disappear and for me to have to train somebody else, right? Because I think we've all been in those
Exactly.
jobs where you're like, "There is no training, I'm just like, what am I supposed to be doing right now?" I don't want that from my team members. So, what I started doing, and you can do this too if you don't have a team or you're thinking about hiring someone on, is just to look through the steps that you do in your repeated tasks. Like what does it actually have to look like? What are, and you can just write it down so then later you can have, so you can start to build things to give to somebody else. But if they don't know, like when I go to schedule like my content, coming back to that, well, how do I do it? Well, I use Canva for my graphics, and then I use Planet to actually schedule it out. And like, first I start here, and where do I write the content? Like, there's a few steps that I always follow. So if I were to give that to somebody else, if I have it like already written out, then I can have something that they can follow. Even record, you can even like do like if you are hiring someone, you can do like a Loom video or something.
Right.
So then they have something to work with when you go to hire them.
Yes. And then when they take on that project and you can tell them, like, here's the system I follow. If you need to update it, let's update it together to work for you. But then document what you're doing. Because
Mhm.
maybe if for any reason, like you said, something happens, they're not able to do it anymore, they move on, they grow their business, they change their pricing, they stop doing what they're doing because they are just a contractor.
Yeah.
You have that record there so that someone else you can hire for that position quickly. And with my one-on-one clients, this has been a big part of a need for them because they're actively growing their teams at that higher level. We're adding in multiple team members. And when you don't have everyone communicating and documenting their processes, it's hard to manage all the pieces of your business and say, hey, what are you doing that? Why did this not happen? Can you
Mhm.
did you do it or not do it? Like, there needs to be some sort of checks and balances. So, you start off as a solopreneur who's a hot mess and crazy.
Just doing whatever kind of comes your way.
Kinda, yeah, spaghetti at the wall, and that's how we all start. But once you get into a groove and you say, like, "This is working," or, "These are the actions I know moves my business forward. I wanna do them better and more efficiently or expanded," the systems are going to make it possible.
Totally. And I don't know if you're listening and you're like, I don't want, this is one of the things that sometimes I have a thing is like, I don't want my VA spending her time writing down a process. I want her to do the job that I need her to do. I don't want her to waste time or waste my money making this process right now. But I'm like, no, this will help my future self. I need to get her to do it. Even if it's like, it feels sometimes like that idea of like slowing down to speed up. It can feel like, oh, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to get my VA to do this right now? But it does help you in the long run.
It sure does. It's valuable time and money spent. It
Mhm.
really is. So my question is, I want to kind of wrap up with this is if someone's like, all right, you're convincing me I might need some systems, or maybe they have systems in place and they feel like, well, it's not really making that much of a difference. Give me some tools and tips and resources that maybe we could pass on to our entrepreneurs listening because they're all moms. We got limited time, we got kids, we're juggling things. What are some tips and tools that you give your clients, and even your teachers? Because I'm sure there's some overlap.
Yeah. So the first tool that I always give my teachers and my clients is what I call the intentional 10. So it's like spending
Mm,
10 minutes at the beginning of your week to save an hour or more. But basically, it's like you want to look at your week and you want to actually decide when you're going to do what, where you're like, where the challenging or meetings are, or where the things that like you can't, like you have to be there for school pickup kind of a thing, and then creating your work hours and deciding what you're going to do when, that is a huge game changer. And I mean, it can be a very flexible system. It can be very structured depending upon your style. But That's where I would probably start, is getting a handle of how you're running your week, because then it doesn't feel like everything's just flying at you.
This that is really powerful.
Mhm.
And so impactful for you to get the results that you are hoping for when you match your intentions with your actions.
Yeah.
That's a big
Yeah.
power move. My one of my things I tell my clients, and this is actually my own thing I had to do for myself when I first set up Trello, because I set up Trello and then I didn't look at it for 3 months.
Mhm.
No, not kidding. I said it, I took a whole week. I was like, I'm gonna make all these systems. I made all these beautiful systems, set up like 10 boards, and then that was all my brain can handle apparently. And I was like, that's it. And I just moved on, right? And
Yeah.
then realized I had made all those boards and I was like, oh, I should probably look at them. I set my alarm for every day at 9 a.m. because that's when I would do my first like hour of work every day. I set it just in the alarm was check Trello. And my only
Mhm.
goal was to open the app.
And then
That's
it
it.
was like, yeah,
Like, I did,
that
even if I wasn't working, I just had to open the app. That I couldn't, I made myself, I was like, turn off the alarm, open the app. And that I counted as a win. And it got me into this habit of like going to Trello. And obviously, once I started opening the app, I could see all these things and systems and goals I had. I would start to take action on them. So
mhm.
it's like if you had a planner, if you opened it every day, you're going to use it.
Yeah. Because I think, and that's one of the mistakes that I see with entrepreneurs and with teachers, is that we feel the sense of, I don't have enough time and I need to jump into my work right away. But if
Mhm.
you can make that shift of like, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time like thinking about what I'm going to do and like prioritizing and getting clear. Like I always think of it as like a CEO morning routine, or like some
Yeah.
little, like just a little thing that you do at the beginning of every day. And that can be like looking at your intentional 10 plan, looking at your Trello board, looking at the system that you've created. And I love that you even had like a timer to just remember that routine that you've created, and starting
Well,
small. Like it doesn't have to be big, but you can gradually increase it. But yeah, just not, don't just jump into your work. Think about your work before you get into it.
it's super powerful. I just thought of this analogy, and I liken it to this because you can relate. It's like if I have a plan for my week for dinner for my family,
Hmm.
or if I just, oh my gosh, it's 4:30, we need to eat at 5 because we have to be at this practice at 6, and I start opening up the fridge and just like pulling things out and moving around, and it's like we have nothing to eat in the house. It's
Hmm.
that feeling of I don't even know. And I know I have food in the house. I spent all the groceries. I know what my grocery bill was. And
Yeah.
there's food in the freezer, but we don't have a plan. And so that crazy urgency kind of blocks us from anything in the moment of even knowing what to do. And then we resort to some junk food or box food that we don't really want to eat anyways. The kids will
Chicken
eat it.
nuggets again.
I know, right? Mac and cheese from a box.
Yeah.
Which isn't terrible, but it's not the way I want to live, and that's not the
No.
food I like enjoying, and so that's the same thing with our business. If we have an intention and a plan, then we can take action on it and, like, take little steps throughout the day, or we know what we want, we know what ingredients we need, we know where we need to go, but if we don't, it's just like this constant chaotic feeling and rushed feeling in
Yeah.
last minute.
One of my mentors called it mental negotiation. When
Ooh.
instead of wondering about, like, instead of just doing the task that you have to do, especially as a mom, because I'm guessing if you're listening, you probably don't have like copious amounts of time, is we'll get to sit down. Like, say you got in front of the fridge and you're like, what am I going to make for dinner tonight? Should I make this? Oh, I don't know. Do we have an ingredient for that? Maybe I should do this. Would that be easier? I don't know. And you spent like 10 minutes looking at your fridge, right? Because
Mhm.
you're in the mental negotiation. The same as with your tasks. So if you can already have that decision done, you can just go into it.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly, exactly, and that's a powerful question is to say, is it that I have too much to do and not enough time to do it, or that I have time to do stuff, but I'm taking so long just figuring out what I should do first?
Which
That's where
was
most of my
totally where I
silent time is
was.
going.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mhm.
another thing I kind of had to admit to myself was I looked at things on my to-do list so often and thought about them so much that I felt like I had done them. but I hadn't.
And the stress is there that you've done them, but you're not actually moving forward. So it's
No,
just, yeah,
no. And then it
totally
feels
relatable.
like this shouldn't take this long. And then when you finally do it, you're like, that was so easy. Why did it feel like it would take forever? It's because we've been
Mhm.
thinking about it for 12 weeks.
Like emptying my fridge. That's the thing I dread out every week. That really doesn't take that long.
Clean out the
Yeah.
leftovers. Exactly. Well, I love this conversation and I hope it inspires you as a listener to really just be like, okay, systems are a little sexy because it can give my brain some relief here and it can move me
Mhm.
forward. And even referencing back to just where we started out our conversation with Lauren is like the solution and the problem. We know there's a problem. Now there's a solution here. So what are we going to do about it? And is
Yeah.
it worth changing things for? So I have one more question to wrap up is like, let's say somebody's like, well, I have tried and it's just not my zone of genius. It's not my thing to get these systems set up, or I just don't even know where to start. What would you tell them to do to start? And how could they maybe reach out to you if they need the help?
Well, thank you for asking. Yeah, I would say like I think the idea of having to be good at everything, we push this idea of, you know, like work on your weaknesses. Like I know that in school that we always thought about like what's the thing that you need to work on? What is like the bad like what is the thing that you're not doing well at that you need to improve? And instead in business we want to do more of what we're already good at.
Mm.
So maybe like I realized like I thought everyone loved planning and setting up systems and I realized not everybody does.
Nope, not
Like, I
everybody
love
does.
it, like, please help me plan for you, I love it, right? But not everybody does. So where can you spend time that you love, that you can really do well at? And then, yeah, looking for support on things that don't come as naturally to you, like, Lonnie with her brilliant, amazing ideas does not come naturally to me. So, if you want to reach out and follow me, I would love to connect with you. You can reach out on Instagram at I am Lauren Monique.
I love it. And reach out and DM her if you need support. She can help you with getting your system set up. And if you know a teacher who's like working nonstop and is struggling with getting things accomplished, connect them with Lauren because she has an amazing program for teachers too. But again, she also does work with entrepreneurs and says, like, let's get this system set up so that you're not working nonstop and feeling like you're going crazy and never getting anything done because that's not a
Mhm,
way to live. We literally started these businesses so that we could have freedom and flexibility for our families. And it will come so much easier when we have these systems set up so that we can be in that flow mode.
mhm. 100%.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom today. I love always talking to you. And go follow her on Instagram. She's super fun to follow and really real life and like truly approachable. And I love your accent from Canada. So
Definitely got the different accent for sure.
yes,
Yes, I would love to connect with you. And thank you, Lonnie, so much for having me. It was great to be here today.
thank you. And thank you for listening and appreciate you taking the time to put us in your earbuds. Come back again next week for another episode and we'll talk to you all soon.